fantastic tutor, and in today's tutorial happens to be the second tutorial of my course MAC225, and we're going to be talking about what are the elements that makes the news. With this being said, let's hop straight into it. Okay, so we have MAC225. All right, there's a MAC225, and we're talking about elements, all right, of news. Okay, just like yesterday, we talked about what news means according to the Westerner, and what news means contemporary. Okay, we also considered different definitions from different scholars about the term. Today, we are taking our bearing from the elements of news values. Okay, now, while definition of news varies, okay, the main determinant of what can be considered as news is what we see as interest. Okay, the main determinant of what can be considered as news is what we call interest. Why? Because that which interests a group of reader, or that which interests a group of a particular society, might not interest another. Okay, so that information that interests that group or an individual into wanting to know more, all right, is what is seen as news to such an individual. Now, to be news, an account of an event must be of interest to the reader, listener, or viewer. All right, for an event to be a news, an information, it has to be what? It must be a thing of interest to the reader, to the viewer, or to the particular group. Now, to make an event a news, it must be of what? Interest to the viewers. Okay, must be of interest to the viewers, the listeners, or the reader. Okay, so we have that as that. Now let's continue. Just a moment. Now, interest in a story is determined by the news value. Interest in a story is determined by the news value. Now, it is the value in this news that attracts the interest of the reader, the listener, or the viewers. Okay, so interest in a story is determined by the news what? Is determined by the news what? Value. Okay, so we have that as that. So we have that as that. Now, speaking of interest, the story must carry interest, and that interest is what makes the viewer listen, is what attracts, is what creates. Okay, the story carrying a particular value is what interests the viewer, the listener. Okay, so we have that as that. Now let's continue. Now we have the element that determines news value may be subdivided into two groups. Okay, the element that determines the value, okay, the news value may be subdivided into two groups. They are determinants and components. Determinants and what? Components. Okay, so we have that as that. Now, talking about determinants, we are speaking about factors that set the character of something. In this case, news. The determinants of news can be said to be the following. We have the likes of timeliness, proximity, okay, timeliness, proximity, prominence, consequence, interest, and novelty. Okay, novelty, timeliness, proximity, prominence, and consequence. Now let's talk about each of these determinants. When we talk about timeliness, we are simply referring to, okay, to attain that reader or viewer or listener interest or appeal, fact must be fresh. Okay, timeliness, that's another determinant. Okay, so we have timeliness. So far, let's just put it as fresh facts. Okay, let's put it as fresh facts. Okay, so we don't have to elaborate so much on that. So timeliness, the facts that will appeal to a reader has to be fresh. As it is happening, the news is getting to the readers or the listeners. So we also have the human factor element, interest in human beings and events because they concern men and women in situation that might confront anyone else is called human interest. Speaking of reality, if something doesn't affect you directly or indirectly, it's of no interest to you. That is just the fact. If something does not, if an event or whatever, an event, a situation, if it doesn't affect you directly or indirectly, then you have no business with such. So human interest is also an element under determinant constituting the news value. So we have human, just as it is, human interests. So now let's continue. So we have the novelty. This sounds like human interest, but shows more difference. Okay. Now the unusual makes the news, like we said. The bizarre makes the news as well. Okay. So now speaking of novelty, there is a little bit more like interest, but this is it. Let's say in a particular community, something bad happens. It might not necessarily happen to you, your friend, or your family members, but the fact that it's in that's your community, all of a sudden you see that you are interested in it, because something that can happen in your community, who knows, you might be the next victim. So because of this has happened, you want to be at alert, or you want to be careful, okay, or you want to take precautions so that the ball doesn't fall into your court. All right, so that is more of novelty. So as it is said, it's more like it's like human interest, but it's a little bit different. Okay, so we have novelty. So we have conflicts. Nearly every story on each of our front pages in the report, all right, is a report of conflicts. Definitely, like we said yesterday, that conflict sells, bad stories sells a lot in the news. And that's why before you hear one maybe good news, you've heard about 9 bad news, because bad news is what sells. Okay, nobody wants to who wants to hear about somebody opening a new house or something? Who cares? But when it comes to something like this happen, everybody is what's happening, let's know what's going on there. Okay, like we said, bad news sells, and that's why you see a lot of movies. All right, the introductory part of a movie is always filled with conflict. All right, it's always about catastrophe. It's always about evil happening and the protagonist trying to stop the evil. It doesn't start good, starts bad, and see how the bad can be changed to good, and the process starts and continues that way. So we have one of the elements is what we call conflict. Okay, so we have that as that. Now let's continue. Just a moment. Okay, we have novelty. Conflict is a central feature of most news. Sometimes it is physical, as in war or sports. Okay, so we have conflict. So very quickly, let's talk about the components of news. We've been talking about the elements, so let's see what the components of news are. Now, a component is a constituent part of something. Okay, it's a part that is important. Another, it's a unit, a subunit of a system. All right, so it's said to be a constituent part of something. They tend to have more news values or higher news values than stories that lack them. Now, the more of news components you find in a story, the higher the newsworthiness of such a story. Now, let's take this. The 8 components of news are components. So there are 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 of them. So we have age, we have animal, we have sex, we have conflict, we have money, we have children, we have beauty, and we have human interest. Okay, so we have age, we have animal, we have conflict. So as well we have money, children, beauty, money, children, okay, money, children, beauty, and human interest. So all these human interest, all these elements, if they are not found in a story, then the less value this story might carry. Okay, the less value this story might carry. Now, speaking of which, we have what we call news virtues. Okay, news virtues. Now that what news is and what determines, all right, what determines readers' interest in a story have been discussed. Reporters should strive to make the news they publish or broadcast win what credibility and confidence of their readers and listeners by adhering firmly to triple news virtue. Okay, now these triple news virtue are triple news virtues. Now we have one. I think I should another sheet of marker for that. One, we have truth. Okay. 2, we have objectivity. Okay, objectivity. We have the last one is accuracy. Now, just to like it says here, the triple news virtues. Okay, the triple news virtue, like it says, truth. All news stories must represent factual events. All right, facts. All right, and the facts must be verified, not just any kind. How can you even call something a fact if it's not even verified? So, truth about news is that it must, okay, carry facts, it must be factual, and objectivity presupposes that the reporter presents the reader with all sides of the issues. All sides of the issues. Present all the facts and allow the readers to decide what this fact means. For a story to be objective, it must be devoid of reporters' bias, all right? Biases and prejudice. Okay, when we say prejudice, we are simply talking about unnecessary dislikes based on an individual's personality. And we talk about accuracy. This is the last news virtue, and accuracy is a pillar on which every story rests. Okay, your stories must be accurate. The names, the age, address, direct quotation, everything must be on point. So we have that as that. Now let's continue. Now we have qualities of the news reporters. Okay, so as a news reporter, there are some certain qualities you must possess. Some of these qualities are: the news reporter must have a mastery of written or spoken language. Okay, permit me to erase the board. We can take down some points. Now let's talk about some qualities of a reporter. Okay, qualities of a reporter. We have qualities of a reporter, QOR. So we have mastery of written or spoken language. Mastery of written or spoken language is very, very important, because how do you get to express yourself? How do you get to ask questions? How do you get to put everything, all the information you have gathered down correctly? How do you intend to document them? Okay, so we have the reporter must have a nose for news. Okay, nose for news. The reporter must have a nose for news. Okay, a good reporter must be fair, accurate, and objective. Remember the triple virtues of news. The reporter must be fair, accurate, and objective. Okay, a reporter must be updated. Okay, must be kept abreast. All right. A reporter must be current and keep abreast of events and happenings. So we have that as that. So also we have, just to touch on this quickly before we call it a wrap, we have the motives, all right, of news reporters. What are the motives of news reporters? According to Brion, identified 7 motivating factors while working and competing with more than 100 reporters in a successful career. That's Brion Carlin. Now, being the first with facts or fresh insight, every reporter will desire to be the first to get the news. Some of the motivation of reporters are being the first to get the news. That's one of the motivation and we have pursued stories that can have impact. Everybody wants to make an impact in their generation. Also winning prizes, which is kind of complicated anyway. It's not all journalists are out there to win prizes. So we have that as that. So thank you very much, everyone. I think on this note, we'll call it wrap here for today. And in our next class, we'll talk about the elements of good writing. Okay, elements of good writing. Please let's do all to keep our notes up to date and submit them in the appropriate quarters. For those of us that are new to this stream, please do all to smash the like button and use the small subscribe button. And if you need further assistance with anything that has to do with your program, now then you can reach out to me directly on the website www.tutorial.com. I look forward to seeing you on subsequent tutorials. You have a wonderful evening. Bye bye.